Hello YouTube, with my YouTube channel Anna Bella, and today I'm going to be reviewing Emerald Fennell's Wuthering Heights. It is not an adaptation, it is based on Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights. So let's get to the review. Right, Wuthering Heights, I've sieved long enough. Okay, it is 136 minutes or 2 hours and 16 minutes if you would prefer. And it is rated R, or in the UK, 15. Okay, starting with Kathy. What we've got is we've got some strong links to Gone with the Wind, and we've also got strong links to Jane Austen with the Gwyneth Paltrow version of Emma, and also Emma the book, where they go on that strawberry party. Big thing to go on a strawberry party and pick your own strawberries, because the gentry just didn't do that. The colour palette was excellent, the cinematography was good, and the weather was on point for Yorkshire moors. Go weather. Stormy, cloudy, you know that this is going to be a real upset. And the big problem that we have with Wuthering Heights is Wuthering Heights is actually 2 books in one. The first book is the Heathcliff and Cathy relationship. The second book is actually what Heathcliff does after her death and how he looks after or doesn't look after the remaining children. I'm just going to put this out there. Black people have been in Liverpool since 1730 due to the ports. We've also had black people in Tudor times because Henry VIII had a black trumpeter, and we've got records of that because he asked for a pay rise and Henry VIII gave him one. We also have records of black people being in the UK due to the Roman Empire, because the Roman Empire encompassed pretty much all of the Mediterranean and the top of North Africa. Shocker. So if you have an area that's got lots of ports, you will see people from all over the world, because they may be on ships. You may see Asian people, you may see black people, you may see all sorts of people coming and going, delivering goods from around the world. Heathcliff's ethnicity, we're going to get into that. It's supposed to be ambiguous. You are not supposed to know whether he's the illegitimate son of Mr. Earnshaw or not. You are supposed to not know. Could he be white? He could. Could he be dusky, a gypsy? He could. Could he be a Mongol emperor? He could. In fact, there's actually a speech that Cathy gives to him when they're young. It's like, you could be this, you could be that, you could be from anywhere. We just don't know. And the ambiguity is supposed to be there because it allows people to put their own interpretation on it, their own biases and their own prejudice. That's the point of Heathcliff's character. He's an angel, he's a demon. At the same time, that is the point of it. I also loved the cinematography. I loved the money grubbing scene where you had Cathy and her father. She brought some money for him and and she drops it and they're both on the floor picking it up, showing the greediness. Loved that scene. There are many scenes I did not love. I'm doing the positives first. I really liked the fact that Mr. Earnshaw's death was beautifully filmed. You had all the alcohol bottles up at the wall and then him on the floor, showing him drunk himself to death. That's actually Cathy's brother, Hindley's death. Remember, there are 3 children, Hindley the eldest, Cathy, and then the foundling, Heathcliff. Heathcliff is actually taking the place of a son that the family had called Heathcliff. He's the second son, because I get the strong impression that Mr. Earnshaw promised his wife that he would send Hindley off to university/college, but that's a problem because Wuthering Heights is a farm. It's a big manor house, but it is a farm because the family have got lots of land, but they're land rich, money poor. Very common in the UK. But the Lintons, they aren't land rich. They've got a nice big house, but they've made their money as merchants. So that's the difference. Oh, it's so hot. Welcome to the UK in a heat wave. Terrible, hence the big hat. Terrible, terrible, due to my colour complexion. It's just awful. Moving swiftly back to this. Okay, there were some shocking things in this that were not in there. One I'm going to address is the BDSM and the wink that Isabella gave. That's not in the book. She did not consent. She was hoping that she could fix him. That didn't happen either. And she does actually leave him of her own accord. She doesn't have to have, you know, Nellie come over. And the character of Nellie in this version isn't book accurate Nellie. Nellie is a servant. She's a high paid servant. She actually does about 3 or 4 roles. She's a maid of all work, but she's also responsible for raising the children. So she's an upper level servant because the Earnshaws don't have a lot of money. So Nellie is basically Cathy's lady's maid, as well as being Cathy's sort of in charge of nursemaid. She's also in charge of raising Heathcliff. it gets really complicated as to what her job actually is. Joseph's role is very different in the book. In the book, Joseph is actually very biblical, very scriptural, and he actually teaches Cathy and Heathcliff their scripture. In fact, Hindley gets so concerned that he puts both his brother and his sister down to the scripture. Says, Joseph, you've got to teach them because this is getting out of hand. I've got to control them. Hindley's role is actually really important, and in fact, I've missed him in this adaptation because what really unites all three of these siblings is heartbreak. They don't get what they want. Hindley's wife dies, so he drinks himself to death. That cinematography scenes with Martin Clunes as Mr. Earnshaw dying would have been better with Hindley. It was a perfect thing for him because that's how Hindley dies, and that's how Heathcliff gets Wuthering Heights, because he basically defrauds his brother for it, because Hindley isn't just going to give it to him, oh no. But actually he enjoys his miserable company. And there's a scene that the Ralph Fiennes Wuthering Heights version is really good, and the Tom Hardy Wuthering Heights version is really good. They do both of the books. So they do the romance, and then they also do the reconciliation and the children. You know, Hareton, Cathy, and the unfortunate Linton. What is it, Linton? Yeah, I think it is. Moving swiftly on. There are some things in this that are just no-no. But it does feel like a 14-year-old's fever dream, that I get. And what is really annoying is the director, Emerald Ferrell, has actually been to Oxford University, so she has studied these at quite high level, which is why you get links to Gone with the Wind in this, which is why you get links to the Jane Austen strawberry party scene that happens in Emma, both in the film and in the book. There are several Easter egg bits. I love the fact that they include the skin. Margot Robbie's skin was scanned and put in Cathy's room to make like that she's contracted, because as soon as she gets what she wants, she's like trapped by it, and you see that in her relationship with her husband Edgar. And I thought that was really well portrayed, because very few have actually focused on that, because she marries him for money, hence the money grubby scene with her and her father on the floor. I thought that was inspired. The rest of it can go hang, because what she's done is she's made it into an affair movie, which actually isn't what it is, because the book never says whether Catherine Earnshaw, Linton or Heathcliff actually has sex with Heathcliff. It's implied because she keeps going to him on the moors, but we don't know what they're doing, and I don't understand why we had to have that innuendo explained visually with, you know, getting your rocks off near the rocks. I thought that was like unnecessary, but then again, younger generations may not understand. So I was like, the whole thing, there were some really good scenes, but there were some really uncomfortable scenes, and it shouldn't be comfortable because it's a Stormy's tale. You're never going to make Wuthering Heights a you. It just isn't. The Tom Hardy version is great, and actually the Ralph Fiennes version is great. This version just gave me the ick, and it continued giving me the ick because it took away the remaining parts of Heathcliff's humanity. He does save baby Hareton when he is born, because Hindley throws him off a balcony and rescues him. There are some parts of the book that are difficult to reconcile with Heathcliff's character, because he's both an angel and he's both a devil. Because remember, Mr. Earnshaw was actually raising Heathcliff to be the estate manager. Linton was going to be the boss. Heathcliff was going to be the estate manager. He knew how to farm. Yes, hence why there are links to, is Heathcliff black, because the family benefits from Heathcliff's labour, because he's the only one that's actually able to farm. It's one of the reasons why when Heathcliff ends up raising Hareton, he raises him exactly the same as he was raised, because Heathcliff needs to know that Hareton can farm the farm, because that's how they're making money, through farming. That's why Cathy doesn't like it. I mean, it's really interesting. She goes from being this wild slip of a girl to spending 2 weeks, you know, in this grandeur, and she likes it. She likes to be fawned on, she likes to be petted. And then she comes back home and she doesn't want anything to do with the farming nature of her situation. So that is fascinating in itself. What am I going to rate this? I'm not going to rate it because it's an adaptation with question marks. It's very lazy. It's lazy. There are some really inspired cinematography bits, and then there are some really lazy bits. It's not got links to Romeo and Juliet. It doesn't have that. Yes, Heathcliff and Cathy are doomed, but they doom themselves by the choices that they make. But actually society restricts what they can do. My favourite scene is actually the one of Nellie tightening Cathy's corset. I love the fact that she's tightened, because she's put the wedding off for a year. because she's waited for a year in case Heathcliff comes back. He doesn't come back, and when he does, it's too late. So you have all of this, but what is really sad is we don't actually see what Heathcliff does after she dies, which is so important with the children. I love the fact that we also get the egg smack, them sitting on the eggs in the bed, implies that they're never going to have children. That's interesting. This is not a literal Wuthering Heights adaptation at all. It's not, you know, page for page. And it's her 14-year-old fever dream, because that's what happens. 14-year-olds read Wuthering Heights, they think it's a romance. Adults come to it and are absolutely horrified, because it's basically domestic abuse, high violence, and it just shows how all these people are emotionally abusing each other, including Edgar Linton, because he's an emotional abuser. How am I going to rate this movie? It feels like Wuthering Heights, but it's not Wuthering Heights. The weather was accurate. Margot Robbie was too old to play her because they're teenagers. That's why Heathcliff and Cathy's romance is so heightened, because they're teenagers, very similar to Romeo and Juliet, even though it's not Romeo and Juliet. So you're dealing with very young people, and when you first fall in love, the emotion is incredibly overwhelming. They're also very sheltered people. They've never left the moor, apart from Heathcliff, who does. You know, Heathcliff and Hindley are the only two characters that leave and then come back again. And that's interesting again. It shows their gentleman's education that they had under Mr. Earnshaw. That's how you go to get money. I find that fascinating in itself. How am I going to rate it? I'm going to give it 3 out of 5. Because there are some bits I really like. There are other bits that I'm just like, what on earth are we doing? Why did I look at that snail that was slowly slugging over a window? What was that about? I watched a snail move. There was some really good. Her use of colour, her use of cinematography, the costumes weren't correct, but actually you could see what she was getting at. She was Easter egging other things to make it seem more intelligent. But actually I wanted to watch Wuthering Heights, and Wuthering Heights is stormy, brown and very dull, because you're dealing with lower gentry problems again. And that isn't, you know, big balls and whatnots. It's not. It's very simple. You know, it's the barley mow in the farmhouse at Wuthering Heights. They have a very small ball at one point, very small. It's really done really well in the Rafe Fiennes version. Sorry, it's not Ralph, it's Rafe. You know, version. It's small scale local community, and it's interesting that when they do capture Heathcliff, because, you know, they go to basically look at the Grange and stick their noses up and go, like teenagers do, they say, oh, it's Earnshaw's gypsy. And it's interesting the fact that had Heathcliff not been under Earnshaw's protection, the community would have kicked him out. But because they're not quite sure whether he is his illegitimate son or whether he's not, they're like, oh, we can't touch him, he belongs to Earnshaw. That's fascinating in itself. Anyway, 3 out of 5 from me. That's this review done. There you have it. My review of the Emerald Fennell Wuthering Heights adaptation. Hats off to Jacob Elordi for pulling off his Yorkshire accent. I thought he did do a nice Heathcliff. But even though people are like, he's whitewashed, I'm like, it doesn't say. It doesn't tell you. It doesn't say what race he is. It just says that he is dark. Now, dark could be 2 things. It could be literal dark brown, dark black, or it could be dark because he's been working outside with the suntan. Yeah? We don't know. Also, it could be darkness of his soul because he's described as a demon. We are not sure. There's the ambiguity of it. And that's what makes it beautiful, because we can do all sorts of things. Heathcliff can be anybody or anything. In fact, he ends up being a millionaire, by the way. You know, with significant money that he can't, you know, get what he wants because she's sadly passed. So there, I have ended. There you go. Well, I hope you enjoyed my review of Emerald Fennell's Wuthering Heights. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and don't forget to click the notification bell for my next video. Thank you so much. Bye.